Hello and welcome to the show. We are back at the Endurodrome with, well, hopefully, 3 cars being driven till destruction. Starting today with something a little bit different. This is a Barstow, but it isn't a normal one. It has a V8 diesel engine, and we haven't had a diesel run around here at all in this series. So, going to be interesting to see how the engine is going to hold up through the demands of this circuit. However, it is still in a Barstow, and there are concerns. The driveline, the primary one, this car is notorious for having the driveline shatter. It is better, sort of, by now. And I don't know whether this has a reinforced driveline at all with different engines and so on, but the driveline is always the big concern with these cars. Suspension-wise, I mean, we are going to be a classic car, classic American boat, if you like. The suspension is likely to be a little bit wobblematic, which is good. In general, if you have a little bit more compliance in the suspension, it does tend to keep the car alive a little bit longer, although when it does go, if it does go, you can then be in for a lot of trouble. We've got to be very, very mindful of over-revving the engine. It's very easy to do. In this car, it is the easiest car I've ever had to over-rev it slightly, especially as you're bouncing around and trying to keep up some sort of momentum, because as per ever, the rules for this series, I have to drive the car as hard as I can. Now with a vehicle like this, it is actually quite difficult to drive it too hard. It's very oversteery, it's very keen to slide around. You know, there's 600 torque going through the rear wheels, about 300 horsepower. And in a classic car like this, when you're on road tyres across dirt and mud, well, funnily enough, it does go sideways an awful lot. It does go sideways an awful lot. Oh, horrible feelings. So the fuel tank on these is at the back, and it is quite exposed in these classic cars. Horrible feelings that we could actually clonk the fuel tank out. It's unlikely at this circuit, perhaps more than we have seen, certainly from previous destruction circuits, where a lot of heavy jumps, if you get them a little bit wonky, you could land on the rear, taking out the fuel tank. Here, less in the way of heavy jumps, but if the suspension collapses, we lose ride height. In fact, the rear suspension doesn't look happy, does it? That's more kind of wheel movement than I would have liked to see, really, there. It's not terrible yet. It's not completely gone, all of the suspension travel. It's still got some, at least, which is something. All right, try and aim for the jump fairly straight. We've got a little bit of a clonk on the landing. That's not too bad, though. This is where we kind of bounce wildly around. Ooh, radiator's gone. Okay, so radiator's gone on the speed bumps. Don't know what that's going to mean in terms of the... Whoa! There's a lot of oversteer there. Don't know what that's going to mean in terms of the overheating, whether we're going to see this engine overheat quicker or not as quick. Don't know which one to expect. I think I might have tweaked the steering somewhere. I don't know whether it's off a speed bump or whether it was from that. I was surprised with the spin because that's a very, very low speed. Okay, so we have got some slightly tweaked steering going on. Can't actually see which wheels bent. Sometimes, of course, the rear wheels can get bent, and that then makes the car drive in a funky manner. We're on to the second lap, though. We have made it on to lap number 2. That's a big clonk again. It sounds painful, this car. It does sound painful. Of course, this sort of vehicle is pretty heavy. So we are... Oh, yeah, we are going to have some pain in places. It's not as bad as a bus or a truck or something along those lines. However, it is going to be taking... There's a lot of force. There's a lot of momentum coming down in these jumps. Taking out a tyre. I don't think we've seen very many tyres go out across a... Oh, we're going to understeer over there. Please don't kill us. We haven't seen very many tyres be taken out just from speed bumps. I mean, if they are going to be taken out, that is one of the places where they might go when you hit those speed bumps with some decent force. Temperature so far, not even budging, although sometimes that gauge... Sometimes the temperature can go up on the car and that gauge not move. Some of the modded vehicles... Oh, we've got so little control now. That is not good news for us. Come on, Barstow. We're okay. Yeah, my bigger concern currently is that we are going to have suspension/axle issues, I think, long before the engine expires. That is the point of this circuit. It is designed in a way that will hurt cars. It is designed in a way that vehicles will fall apart more likely through the wheel damage, through suspension damage, or through something spectacular. I mean, I'm still hoping that one day we will see a vehicle that can rival the Regency in terms of its falling apart. The S-Series was amazing, it just kept going, it wouldn't die. The Regency fell apart in the most entertaining way I think we have ever seen. This big jump coming up here is where we are most likely to see heavy damage done to a car. The Barstow's doing a pretty good job though. Although the only downside is, of course, if you get that jump landed perfectly, you then carry a lot of speed into those speed bumps. No issues though this time around. I think we were obviously perfectly positioned, if you like, to kind of ping off the first one, and then just didn't catch the car whatsoever through the next ones. Oh, there's some crunching. There's some squeaks and crunches. We're going to go on towards the next lap though for the Barstow. It's going well. The driveline is holding up, which is, well, good news for the car here. It's not too many vehicles have made it this far. You know, a lot of vehicles. Hell, we've seen the first lap can be very, very damaging for cars. Considering, you know, I had some pretty hefty concerns around the. Oh, that felt like something in the front might be causing grief. Oh, there's more stuff at the front to hit. How is that front suspension doing? The chassis is looking a little buckled. It's this gradual buckling of the suspension. The car will gradually get lower and lower as it goes around, or the entire shocks, the entire suspension will collapse to the point where you are then hitting the front on everything. And well, that tends to kill steering, or it kills a driveline. I think we are actually now starting to bash the chassis plate on the floor. Temperature-wise, no idea what's going to happen with this vehicle. I don't think the temperature gauge is working on here, so that should be fun. It might overheat at any particular point, or it might have, because I'm not actually seeing steam come out of the car. The graphic showing that the radiator's gone might be incorrect, because we would expect to see some, well, yeah, expect to see it overheating. I'm struggling a little bit with steering here. We're going to land on the front corner. Yeah, so we've got some pretty hefty front suspension. I'm not actually sure we've got any front suspension left. Again, I'm watching the way the car's pinging around. We are bouncing a little bit uncontrollably. Are we... What we like in terms of, I say what we like in terms of going in a straight line as we head down the bumpiest straight section imaginable. It's actually not got much worse. I cannot stop. We'll have to avoid that car. Wouldn't be the first car to be flung into the concrete. Thankfully, there was enough grip. Once you're on the bumps, once you're getting carried along the bumps, there is nothing you can do. You can't do anything to stop the vehicle. Right, towards the jump we go once more. Barstow is another time nicely across the jump, but are we going to have trouble across the speed bumps? Ooh, it's a sickening crunch. It's a sickening crunch from the car. We're going to go for a spin as well. Whoops. Okay, let's get you back pointing the right way. It's not too bad. We can live with a spin. Yeah, no idea what's going on with the engine. Absolutely no idea what we've got going on with that, but we will keep going, of course. Oh, and I say we'll keep going, of course, and there's nothing stopping it. We are across more speed bumps. The suspension took a lot of damage on the first lap. It was quite the concern as to what was going on with the suspension on that first lap, and it's just not really got any worse. It's just it was getting dodgy on the first lap, and it's just stayed at that same level. The tyre going down not really caused us any grief. Oh god, there's another big hit on the speed bump. That was just all on the rear left. The car can take it. The car will survive that, apparently, at the moment. The rear right is a more... Again, I'm looking at the ride height here. This is the important thing to note. The rear right does look lower. We don't really want to clip that on something. We are okay across there for now. It's still scraping the front of the car. Well, the Barstow with a notoriously glass driveline does seem to be holding up. Oh, I'm over-revved it a little bit. Getting it into the mud. Might have got a little bit too much with it. Oh, that's across the rocks. We're fine though. Fuel tank's still okay. There was a concern going across the rocks that we might see the fuel tank have issues, but not so. Oh, that's not good for the car. How's that rear wheel holding up? We good? Surprisingly, yes. Oh, the rear... One side of the rear is now looking very second-hand, though. Yeah, the rear right is gradually being eroded. Any sort of ride height is gradually going. I'm assuming it's that. Either that or the body, like the entire chassis is being lopsided. Oh, now we go for the crunching down here. Let's just stick it in fourth. We can go. We've got the torque to get away with that. It's not too much of a problem. We're just going to clonk on everything down there. I'm amazed the drive line is taking this battering. I'm amazed the drive shaft is okay with this. It's normally what kills vehicles, kills the Barstow at least, is the drive shaft giving up. It is still going. Here we up towards the jump once more. Oh, there goes the rear bumper. It's like perfectly speed across there every time to get a nice landing. We are struggling though with control here. Oh, there we go. That's the drive shaft done. I thought it might go eventually. It was bouncing towards the speed bumps. Now we can roll it down here. We will get it through the petrol station. It is downhill. I'm really surprised the drive shaft lasted so long. It did eventually. I mean, it was the speed that kept getting carried off that jump was immense. It was on the speed bumps it's on the bumps towards kind of the rough terrain, the potholes towards the speed bumps. And I think it must have just been slightly twisted enough. I mean, you can see there's a little bit of damage on the front wheels. They're not quite perfectly in line anymore. Still got plenty of steering left in the car. The diesel did well, though. The Barstow did very, very well indeed. Well, we move on from one big V8-powered rear-wheel drive muscle car to a little lightweight Japanese sports car. Yes, the Toyota A86 is going to have a try around this course. Concerns for this? Well, as with any sort of small light sports car, being bounced around is likely to be, well, potentially quite scary for the car. I don't know how much punishment the suspension is going to be able to take. It doesn't look like it's ultra stiff suspension on this car. It does look a little bit more compliant, which will be good. We're not likely to get, well, pinged around. We saw with the Sunburst, for example, and the ultra stiff race cars, track cars and so on that have gone. When they are very, very stiff, every bounce you hit, you have a big chance of rolling over, and you just lose control of the car going down half the straights. You just end up getting bounced around something chronic. Whereas at least with a little bit more compliance, you can get away with it. You might hear some scrabbling going on in the background because a kitten... Hold on. Kitten! What are you doing, Eve? Kitten jumped on my chair. Kitten's jumped on the chair and now run away. Well done, kitten. I could do without cat claws in your back while driving. Anyway, cat interlude number one. It looks like she's in a zoomies mood, which means there'll probably be more cat interludes. The doors are bent. Oh no! Oh, the doors are bent. The front windscreen's gone a little bit. It's not the worst damage. Don't know what we're going to see from the engine in terms of overheating around here. Don't know what the radiator's going to be like in terms of protecting that engine. Oh, we're going to ping our way up into there. Oh, it's tore the bumper off. It's opened the boot. No important damage done, though. The wheels are still all perfectly in line. Actually pretty controlled down here. Yeah, this is actually good going for the car. It's bounced. It has eventually got over because it was one of the few vehicles that's actually been able to carry that sort of speed down there. Can we get out of the sandpit? Now, if we roll the car like that and get stuck there, we're allowed to drag the vehicle out. Likewise, well, I'm not allowed to reverse the car if it's gone into a wall, into a stuck position because of broken steering. If it's, you know, been spun or I've done something dumb with it, then of course I am allowed to rescue it. We should just make it up there. We do. We have got everything. So a lot of flapping things at the back. Through the potholes we go. Across the speed bumps we go. I'm a little bit concerned about the front of the car. The front... Yeah, okay, so the front right is in all sorts of trouble now. We were bouncing towards the speed bumps. We've got to cross them at a bit of a wonky angle, and it's just torn the front right. I moved the front right backwards. We are pulling very, very badly now, which... I mean, it's drivable, you know, it's still going to make the corners. The problem is when it starts pulling, it makes it very difficult to be incredibly precise. Little mistakes will happen, and the bigger concern is, well, like landings of the jumps there, for example. Getting the landings right, because the car wants to twist. It wants to twist on takeoff, so I've got to fight it, and sometimes you overcorrect, sometimes you don't correct enough. You can still get perfect jumps, but you're just asking for more trouble. Also, you're asking for trouble heading down here. That was very nearly in the shipping container. We've lost the rear bumper. That's not too bad. Radiator is still in one piece. Engine's up to normal operating temperature. The engine is, well, the radiator is still working. That would be a concern of mine in this sort of car. We have got away so far without clonking it on anything. Oh, we're going to clonk the curb a little bit, oversteering our way towards the curbs. Oh, got off that curb with a big oversteer moment the other way. I wasn't quite prepared for that, but it's not, again, it's not doing any harm to the car. We maybe waste a little bit of time. This isn't about the fastest lap. Well, I'm going to try and go as fast as possible, of course. Catching the car when it's spinning, you know, we've got to slow down for some of that. I can't just be full throttle everywhere. Are we going to be okay across the rocks? Mostly, yes. I am surprised. I'm still surprised that we haven't seen anything in more trouble across. I keep thinking those rocks are going to tear the underside of a car apart. I say this every week, and I keep expecting something to have a drive shaft taken out, something to have important things taken out. You just manage to bounce high, unless you're going really slow, you just manage to bounce high enough that you are over them. I noticed the camber we've got going on the rear left. So front right, rear left are not happy wheels on this car. Got pretty well down that straight though. The bumpy straight does not hold as much fear for the little sports car as you might possibly expect. Could have a little oversteer moment, not quite. Okay, this is where things went wrong for us a little bit last lap, because we were actually quick enough to... Oh, I've got big steering issues towards here. That's not good. That's not good for the car. I think we got away without actually major damage. Or, well, I say that. The exhaust is hanging on. The boot's on the roof, the exhaust is hanging on for dear life, one door's open, we are across the curb. The steering's got a lot worse. There goes the radiator. I've got very big steering issues though. I think the steering issues might become the more prevalent of our problems in all of this. The exhaust I would quite like to fall off. I'm not quite sure what it's still attached by. I don't know if the exhausters can get caught on something and give us grief. I think it will just be light enough that it'll just get pinged. Like, we will outdo whatever, like, we'll outpull the exhaust. I think it'll just ping around, but it might cause us grief. Our diff is having problems. I think we've got a tweaked chassis, which is actually giving issues for those rear wheels trying to touch the ground, so we're getting one-tyre fires in some places. It's still a pretty good showing. We've got the exhaust in the passenger side of the car. That's absolutely where it needs to be. It has actually kind of neatened it up, at least for us. Now, can we... So we've still got plenty of speed to get across the curbs. Oh, now the exhaust has fallen out again. It's another pretty good showing, though. This is another pretty damn good showing from a sports car. Does not want to go quietly into the night around here. That front wheel there is in a very precarious position. Oh, there goes the exhaust. We've lost it fully now. I mean, in reality, that would cause us more issues than it will cause us in this game. The exhausts are basically just visual parts on here. We're going to clonk into the dirt bank. That's fine. We do struggle to carry momentum through here. That might actually help the car, because we really struggle carrying momentum through the mud pit, so we're not actually going as fast when you hit this section. Oh, big clonk on the front. Don't think it's made it any worse than it already was, mind. Say that. I mean, it was pretty bad to begin with. That is pulling a long way. The wheel is facing a long way to the right. However, it isn't actually pulling as badly as that would suggest. We might have trouble lining the car up for the big jump, though. Or taking speed and lining the car up for the big jump. That's where the issues come in. Oh, we've got big suspension collapse on the rear. The rear right's going. That rear right has had a bad time. That will give us... The concern I have with that going is we've already got diff issues, so suspension collapsing there. Gonna make life more difficult putting power down. It's not stopping the car from going, though. We are still trundling along. Come on, steer through there. Left-handers are tough for us, which is a problem because a lot of the corners around here are left-handers. Maybe we will bend the wheels back the right way coming up here. Oh, that's not what we wanted. There was a lot of crunching. Oh, big issues now with the back of the car. Rear suspension's going. Oh, this is not the angle we wanted anything at in the car. It's rolled over. Oh dear. Oh, lots of suspensions poorly now. Control is considerably less. I mean, it's doing an amazing job to still be going. I will give it that. We've had some really tough cars. Like, cars are just not giving up here. Cars just do not want to die around this course. The last few episodes. Oh, that's another unfortunate roll. Although, in some ways, this does help the car out. In some ways, this does help the car out because it now means we're going to be going slower over these speed bumps because I've got no momentum. We will clear them. We do still have more than enough steering to get through there. Oh, it's crabbing time. What's going to go first? Steering or engine? What are we going to lose first in this car? Don't know. I don't know. I think the engine... Oh, that front left is so shattered. That front left corner, there's just no shock left. It basically, yeah, the wheel is permanently shoved up into the top of the wheel arch. That could have problems over speed bumps, although we have... Oh, like that. The drive shaft is doing very well. Because that's the main thing that will kill us here. We lose the drive shaft, that's going to put us out. Actually, the other thing we could have go is the engine. We have seen this with cars on collapsed suspension. The front gets so low, you hit a speed bump with force, and you actually lose the entire engine. The Regency went out, despite all of its rear axle failure, actually went out here with the engine being hit on a speed bump. I don't think we're going to last till the end of this lap. If the engine doesn't overheat before we get to it, I think we might see the car die on the big jump. Or if we get across the big jump, oh, we're going to hurt the engine getting through that mud. That's going to put the temperature up. Come on, car, keep going, keep going. We can make it across this next section here. Oh, that was a big hit on a rock. Yeah, we've now got not enough speed to clear that jump nicely. However, time spent on the roof, I guess it costs us a little bit of overheating. However, it doesn't cost us damage to important bits. Damage done to the roof is irrelevant here. It's not a happy car anymore. It is not a happy car whatsoever. That crunch there, we're now not going quick enough to do significant damage across those, which is good news for the A86. It is going to overheat very shortly, though. Come on, climb up there. Still just living. Can we go? I mean, this has been two very, very long-living cars, this and the Barstow diesel. Can we make it further than the Barstow? That is the question. We're going to bounce. We need the engine to last a few more corners. We basically need to roll through the petrol station, I think, and that will put us ahead of the Barstow. It's asking quite a lot of the engine. It's the curbs, it's the speed bumps that I'm most afraid of. We are struggling to get the speed here, though. Okay, that's a hit. That is actually about one of the best outcomes we could have, because we've now sucked all the speed out of the car amazingly, without damaging it further. We're not going to hit these speed bumps with as much force as we have done previous laps, but is it still going to be... There we go, exactly the same place, in exactly the same way. Drive shaft's gone. Drive shaft's gone for the A86. We weren't carrying as much speed across there. We won't roll as far as the Barstow. So there was two schools of thought there. The first one is where we rolled, we lose a lot of speed, so we don't hit the speed bumps as hard. But the downside is we also don't jump over them, so we hit more of them. Either way, I think we're going to have problems. It doesn't really look much like the car that it started off life as. Two drive shaft failures, funnily enough, at the same point, although two very, very different runs. This car was incredibly poorly. The Barstow was holding up fairly well. Those that betted on the car giving up before the engine, or the suspension and whatnot giving up before the engine overheated, well done. You are correct. The final vehicle to run today is the Kashira. This is a, well, people carrier. Now, I did run this around the Endurodrome when I was testing the mod, although a fair bit has changed since then, so it'll be interesting to see how this fares around the current layout and where it might go on the table. It is a mid-level version I've got here, turbocharged i4, all-wheel drive. It's not going to be the fastest vehicle in the world, but all-wheel drive is good. All-wheel drive is, you know, we lose a wheel, we can keep going. We lose a wheel and it might be a pain. It might be a bit awkward to drive it. Steering might suck. or the power delivery, or the chassis might be wonky, but we will still be able to keep going, which is very useful, because let's face it, that's what's going to be taking the large amount of punishment around here. The good news is from this opening little dirt section, certainly the good news for the people carrier, is that suspension soft enough not to bounce us around randomly. It's not going to ping us off into the scenery like we have seen from the ultra stiff race cars, and it doesn't look like we've got high enough, it's certainly not got high enough ride height to get bounced around with a lot of the flights that you see from the SUVs. There's only weird to go over the back, like I think I bent the rear, like the tailgate, that looks slightly twisted. It's almost like it's got a, I think like the sort of lip spoiler at the top has come off. Oh, that's going to be a big crunch on the floor. Of course, I think the downside of all-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive vehicles can just physically be driven faster, which does tend to mean that they are going to take more hits. The big, powerful rear-wheel drive cars struggle to actually put a lot of that power down. So in places you've got to be a lot more cautious with them, just because they can't use their power. And it does, I mean, it kind of, in some ways, evens the playing fields out a little bit. We've got big steering dramas, by the way. Oh, we've got big steering dramas on lap number 1 for the Kashira. That is no front left wheel. Front left wheel is gone. Now, we have got enough power to be able to kind of push through that, but this is going to start hurting, although we got away with that pretty well. Front left wheel axle is broken entirely now. That's fine. Oh, it's less than fine, though, if we start doing this. Oh, come on, car. Come on, car. Don't do this to me. Radiator's gone. We will overheat. I think the steering is a bigger concern. With that one wheel still working, oh, we will be able to potentially make corners. The good news, with the front left wheel axle snapped, that means that that wheel is not being driven anymore. Sometimes when the wheels get just buckled, they do still get drive to them, and then it drags the car off the road. Makes it very difficult to get around corners. However, with the wheel axle actually snapped, we should be able to still use the one good wheel to make it around corners. We are going to have to go slowly across the chicanes. I no longer have the control to, be able to take that bit particularly fast. If I try and run into there too quickly, that's when you run the risk of... Oh, we're already fighting there. You run the risk of ploughing into the wall. I'm not allowed to reverse, unless it is from an unlucky spin off of something, or something silly along those lines. I'm not allowed to use reverse. If the steer, certainly in this instance, because of steering failure issues. Oh, come on, get back on stay on the road. Oh, that's gonna cause us grief. We are fine. The plus side for the vehicle, at least, is at least now I'm not hitting the speed bumps hard. I can't, apart from in a couple of places. We're not going to be able to be going across them particularly quickly. Oh, and for example, around here, I just can't take any more speed unless the wheel happens to be pointing in the direction that I want it to go, which most of the time it isn't. Most of the time it isn't. Oh, come on now. That's very annoying. Ideally, I would like to have that wheel fall off. Ideally, I would like to have that wheel come off the car. Oh, we might be in lots of trouble here. We might be in a lot of trouble here. I was carrying a bit too much speed. I think we will still be good to get the car onto the circuit. While we are carrying, we're carrying on here, it's still working. The thing you will notice, temperature. That is now rising up quite a lot. And the more I have to faff around fighting this wheel, the more I have to rev the engine, the harder it has to work. We've had to really fight to get our way through that mud pit. That's got the that's got the engine, very, very hot. Was wondering if I could maybe snag the wheel on a rock and tear the wheel off. That would be helpful. That would be helpful, but no. If you could land on that front left side. And the damage is done in terms of the overheating now, because of the extra work we've had to do. Oh, that's going to be problems for the people carrier. That is not a steering-related spin in the tunnel. That was a crash on the old... it was a steering-related issue coming in, where we just pinged off the door, or pinged off the side of the tunnel. Oh, we have got worse. Now we're starting to get some big steering issues. Ooh, actually, interestingly, we pushed the front axle back on the left-hand side, it looks like. Not entirely sure quite how we have managed that one. But there we go. That is shunted back a fair way. Overheating is not good. Oh, has the wheel. We might have gone out before we get to overheating though, because I think that's got stuck in a position that I cannot any longer steer it. I don't quite know why it's refusing. I don't know if it's the hill that's doing this to us. I just simply cannot get it to turn back. The steering's gone on it. I wonder if something's twisted to the point where... Oh, yeah, like, well, you can see how much it's ducking down as I'm trying to use the steering. Whatever it's doing, it's just not getting any grip. That's a weird way the steering's gone. I mean, it wasn't going to last much longer anyway. That wheel there is clearly trying to do something, but we are a long way off the course. It couldn't turn. It just stopped turning. I don't know whether it was a hill, combination of hill and suspension damage, but the steering was well and truly given up on the Kashira. We're actually a very long way off the course. Way too far off the course now to continue. I mean, that wheel went early on. We got it around. We got it around a little further another time. But ultimately, your steering's going to cause issues. The radiator was gone. We were going to overheat very, very shortly. But, yeah, there we have it. Steering failure. Not too bad a distance, though. It could be worse. On to the results, and we don't have a change in the top three, although it was very, very close. The Barstow Diesel, that'll go into a 4th place. It is only a fraction down on the ETK S-Series. The S-Series died, well, it got over the jump, and then promptly died going into the chicane, whereas the Barstow's drive shaft snapped on the speed bumps and kind of coasted its way through the petrol station. It does beat the AE86 as well. The distance indicators are not always 100% accurate with these cars. The A86 came to a grinding halt inside the petrol station. The Barstow just got its way out the other side. So it's very close. Both of those survived a really long time. It's amazing for a Barstow to not go out through drive shafts. And the A86 I thought might struggle around here, but it really didn't. It really did not. The Kashira, that is further down the leaderboard. Still not a terrible showing from that car whatsoever. Goes into a 21st place with that steering failure. It beats the ETK 800 series, the biggest state car. It beats the Pazima, beats the Burnside, the Firehawk, and so on. It is a fraction down on the Skoda, the likes of the Pursue, my car made in automation, and so on. Yeah, it's okay. It was a little bit unlucky, I think. The steering went very early on, and then it was very difficult to keep that vehicle going, eventually giving up. That, though, is going to be it for this episode. As ever, I shall link all the mods used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. That's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.